Welcome to the season finale of Gary Talks. Season finale, what does that mean? Well, we'll get into all that at the end of the show, but right now let's just sit back and enjoy some stuff that I hated. That's right, we all have bands that we love, and every time one of their albums comes out, we can't wait to hear it. But every once in a while, we buy that CD, the record, the cassette, the downloads, Spotify, whatever you kids do now, and you're like, what the fuck is this bullshit? What the fuck is wrong with this album? This thing is horrible. And I wanted to talk about that today, because who needs to be positive all the time? So today, on Gary Talks, we're going to talk about 10 albums I hate from bands I love.
Gary Talks Music. Gary Talks Music. Gary Talks Music.
Of course, I gave myself a couple ground rules here, and then I'll, of course, break at least one of them down the road. But I wanted it to be where it wasn't just one band with a bunch of albums that I didn't like. So I tried to keep it just one band on the list and an album of theirs I hated. I did cheat once a little bit, and we'll get to that one later. I try not to do a bunch of cover albums because a lot of times when bands do cover albums, it's just a good cover song is hard. You know, the cover song needs to sound enough like the original, but different enough, and so a lot of bands do the cover albums that are not good. There are, a couple cheats on here that we'll get to in a minute. Number 10 is an album that pretty much any fan of this band will agree with. Now, of course, there are albums that over time have gotten better. I know, say, the Motley Crue John Corabi album. When it came out, I hated it. It's grown on me. Poison, Native Tongue. When it came out, I hated it. It's grown on me. I talked on the Bon Jovi episode before about when Keep the Faith came out. I hated it and it grew on me. This one I hated the first time I heard it. It has not grown on me. I hate it now, and I've tried to like it. And at this point, I just gotta say, this album fucking sucks. And it's all because Lars was apparently playing drums on some kind of a fucking trash can. That's right, coming in at number 10, Metallica, Saint Anger. Where do I even begin? It's like the band took all the elements that made them great and threw them out the window, then decided to record the resulting mess. From the opening track, Frantic, it becomes painfully clear that something is amiss. Or just sucks. The production quality is notoriously poor, with the infamous tin can snare drum sound that clatters through each track, a constant and grating reminder of the album's rushed and almost careless execution. The raw, unrefined approach seems intended to convey authenticity and raw emotion, but it instead feels sloppy and unfinished. While the intention to return to a more primal and raw sound is understandable, the execution on Saint Anger is flawed at every fucking level. So now, the first time that I'm cheating on my list. I said I was going to try not to have cover albums on here. There is going to be one coming up in a bit that's an all covers album by an artist I love. But this album is so atrocious. It is so horrible. And it's from a band covering their own music. Yes, that's right. It was in that time when Faster Pussycat was going to become an industrial goth metal band. Number 9. Faster Pussycat, Between the Valley of the Ultra Pussy. Faster Pussycat's Beyond the Valley of the Ultra Pussy is a glaring misstep that severely undermines the band's reputation in the glam metal genre. Released in 2001, this remix album attempts to modernize their classic sound with a sleazy, industrial twist, but it ultimately collapses under the weight of its own misguided ambition. Beyond the Valley of the Ultra Pussy is a stark reminder that not all reinventions are successful. Instead of breathing new life into their classics, Faster Pussycat produced an album that alienated the longtime fans and offered very little to attract new listeners. It's a misguided experiment that strips away the band's identity, leaving behind a hollow shell of what once was. If I got this number on the bathroom wall, I'd never go in that bathroom again. My number 8 comes from Aerosmith. I love Aerosmith. They've had some great albums, even some of the time in their career where Joe Perry wasn't with the band, or, the band was really messed up on drugs. There's still some good albums in there. Now, I know in a lot of these lists that people talk about stuff, they talk about the album 9 Lives. I actually really enjoy the album 9 Lives. I think it's fun. It has a lot of great tracks on it. That's not the album by Aerosmith that is on here. They also did a blues album of theirs that I didn't really love called Honkin' on Bobo. But that one I didn't put on here because they were just trying something different that I'm sure some people liked and it just didn't work for me. No, for me, this was the moment that Aerosmith fully sold out. It was garbage. It was garbage production. It was garbage songs just for radio airplay. I mean, it's all right there in the title. The album of Aerosmith that I really can't stand is Just Push Play. Aerosmith's album, Just Push Play, released in 2001, is a disappointing detour from the band's iconic rock roots into a realm of overproduced pop rock that fails to capture the essence of what made them legends in the first place. The album is a glaring example of the band attempting to stay relevant by chasing trends rather than embracing their authentic sound. In an attempt to appeal to a broader, and let's be honest, younger audience, Aerosmith sacrificed the raw, real rock sound that earned them their place in the pantheon of rock greats. Just Push Play is a slick, overproduced piece of shit that feels more like a product than a genuine artistic endeavor. For longtime fans, this album is a reminder that even legends can lose their way in the pursuit of modern relevance. Aerosmith's legacy deserves better than this superficial, uninspired, boring collection of bullshit. Okay, now for that cover album I was talking about. And as I said before, cover albums are hard, man. You either stay too close to the old song and you're like, what's the point? You change it up too much and you're like, it doesn't even sound like the song I like. It's really hard for an artist to make it sound like their own and then also make it sound like the original. And sometimes you can do that with one song. Sometimes you can have a couple good covers. But to do a full album of covers is very hard. But when this album came out, it just stunk. You could tell it was Ozzy Osbourne going through the motions, doing what he was told to do. Just the songs had no heart. It was songs that sometimes sounded like he had never even heard them before. It was just awful. It is Ozzy Osbourne, Undercover. Ozzy Osbourne's Undercover, released in 2005, is a perplexing and ultimately disappointing venture into the realm of cover songs. While the idea of the Prince of Darkness paying homage to his influences could have been intriguing, the execution falls flat, resulting in an album that feels more like a contract obligation than a passionate tribute. Instead of a bold, inventive tribute to his musical heroes, Osbourne delivers a collection of covers that are safe, predictable, and devoid of the passion and intensity that made him a rock legend. Fans hoping for a glimpse of the old Ozzy will find little to celebrate here, as Undercover fails to capture the essence of the Prince of Darkness and his storied legacy. Coming in at number 6 is an experimental album from a guy who did all kinds of experimentation in his career. And kind of as his career got further along and he started just kind of doing what he wanted to do, he wasn't trying to get airplay, wasn't trying to do hit after hit. He made some good albums, some not so good albums. This one I can kind of appreciate for what he was trying to do, but I just hated it. It was only 4 tracks, just called North, East, West, and South for the directions. Each song was like 15 minutes, and it was just kind of like a jazz, funk, fusion, something or other, and none of it is anything that I like. And I love this guy. You know I do because I've made videos about him before. But the album from Prince that I hate was called News. Prince's News, released in 2003, is a perplexing and ultimately underwhelming departure from his typical fare. This all-instrumental jazz fusion album strays far from the innovative pop and funk sounds that defined his illustrious career, resulting in a project that feels more like a self-indulgent experiment than a cohesive, compelling body of work. Known for his distinct and dynamic voice, his choice to forego singing in favor of a purely instrumental album leaves a gaping void. The lack of lyrical content or vocal hooks means there's little to anchor the listener's attention, making it easy for the mind to wander and lose interest. The album's self-indulgent nature and lack of memorable moments make it just a challenging listen, even for die-hard fans. Coming in at number 5 is an album that's not as bad as some of these other ones, honestly, but when it becomes the final album of my all-time favorite band, and it's just this kind of lackluster, garbage, forgettable album, that puts it on the list. Of course, that band is Kiss. That forgettable album, their final one they've ever made and probably will ever make, was called Monster. Kiss's 2012 release Monster is a disappointing attempt to recapture the raw energy and glam rock swagger that once made them icons. Despite the band's claims of returning to their roots, the album feels more like a hollow echo of past glories, lacking the innovation and excitement that characterized their earlier work. Instead of reinvigorating their sound or pushing creative boundaries, Kiss delivers an album that plays it safe and leans heavily on nostalgia. The result is a collection of tracks that are forgettable and uninspired, failing to capture the essence of what made Kiss legendary in the first place. For fans that hoped for a true return to form, Monster is a reminder that sometimes the magic of the past is best left to memory. One thing I should point out is I tried to keep this just albums that sucked by bands I already loved. Now sure, there are albums that came out from, before I knew who Led Zeppelin was or whatever that I would hate, or oh, this Rolling Stones album is garbage from the mid-70s, but, I wasn't around as a fan when it came out. So I really tried to keep it just as an album that, I bought new and was disappointed in how shitty it was. This is another band that has been around forever, and they made some pretty shitty albums after Ozzy left, after Dio left, but I wasn't really into the band yet. This was the first time that I couldn't wait to buy a new Black Sabbath album. And goddamn was it horrible. The number 4 worst album by a band that I love, Black Sabbath, Forbidden. Black Sabbath's Forbidden, released in 1995, stands as a low point in the band's storied career, a misstep that even the most die-hard of fans can't defend. This album, the last to feature Tony Martin on vocals, is marred by uninspired songwriting, lackluster production, and a general sense of creative exhaustion that makes you wonder why the fuck they even tried. From the outset, the illusion of power sets a disheartening tone. The track features a guest appearance from, of all people, Ice-T, whose rap verse feels out of place and gimmicky, a desperate attempt to sound contemporary that falls on its fucking face. The album just plods along with a lack of energy and direction. In the end, Forbidden is a disappointing and forgettable entry in Black Sabbath's discography. I think within 3 days of release it was in the cutout bin, and after that, right into the trash. Number 3 is going to be a Motley Crue album, and no, it's not the John Corabi one, even though if I'd made this back in, 95, it would have been on there. But that album grew on me over time, but it was when this album came out, and it was going to be the original members of the band back, and I was like, finally, the Motley Crue I know and love. And instead, we got the number 3 shitty album by a band that I love, Generation Swine. Motley Crue's Generation Swine, released in 1997, is a muddled attempt at reinvention that falls painfully short of the band's hard-rocking legacy. An awkward blend of grunge, industrial, and alternative rock, the album is a misguided effort to stay relevant in a musical landscape that had dramatically shifted since the band's 80s heyday. Musically, the band seems lost, Mick Mars' guitar work, once a highlight of any Motley Crue album, is largely subdued and directionless. The riffs just lack bite. Nikki Sixx's bass lines and Tommy Lee's drumming are really uninspired, serving more as a backdrop to the album's overblown production rather than driving the songs forward with any real power or urgency. And the worst, the fucking worst, the inclusion of Tommy Lee's foray into lead vocals on Brandon.
Brandon, I love you. You are the...
This sentimental ballad written for his son is out of place and saccharine, a far cry from the rebellious rock and roll attitude the fans expect from Motley Crue. God damn, it's horrible. As is this whole fucking album. Coming in at number 2 is the album that kind of inspired this whole list. I made the video before about my top favorite hair metal bands, and I was talking about Warrant. And Warrant made a lot of great albums even after they were no longer cool. But then they made this one, Belly to Belly Volume 1, and it is just some fucking bullshit. It's horrible. It inspired me to talk about the worst albums by bands that I love, and there's really only truly one album I hate more than this one. Warrant, Belly to Belly, Volume 1. Warrant's Belly to Belly Volume 1, released in 1996, is a disheartening departure from the band's glam metal roots, attempting to ride the wave of mid-90s alternative rock, with zero success. I mean, with Dog Eat Dog, they made a darker sound than it was perfect. Ultraphobic may have missed the mark a little, but it was still a pretty good album. But this one, I mean, the songs come off as contrived and uninspired. The gritty production lacks the polish and exuberance of their earlier work, replacing infectious hooks with monotonous riffs and a pervasive sense of gloom. The murky, muddled sound quality detracts from the overall listening experience, and it buries any potential moments of brilliance under layers of indistinct instrumentation. The raw, unrefined production by Jerry Dixon and Janie Lane might have been an attempt to capture a more authentic live feel, but really, it just feels like this is a bad demo album rather than a polished studio release. I can't think of one positive thing to say about this album, except that there was never a Belly to Belly Volume 2. So now number 1. Not only is this the worst album from a band that I love, this is one of the worst albums I have ever heard in my entire life. And there are a lot of albums that I just dislike because I don't like the artist, and this one is horrible. Like, I tried to trade in the CD and nobody would take it. It's something that I haven't listened to again because of how much I hate it. And it's a cheat, because I already listed Metallica earlier with Saint Anger, but because it's Metallica and Lou Reed, I'll allow it. The worst album ever made by a band that I love, Metallica with Lou Reed, Lulu.
I am a chorus of the voices that gather up the magnets set before...
Okay, let me start off by making some of you mad. I've never liked Lou Reed or Velvet Underground. I've never understood what about him, or them, was supposed to be so great and legendary. I just don't get it. I never have. Now on to Lulu. Lou Reed's spoken word delivery clashes with Metallica's heavy instrumentation, creating a disjointed and awkward listening experience. The attempt to blend Reed's avant-garde poetry with Metallica's trademark thrash metal sound comes off as forced and, even worse, pretentious. Lyrically, Lulu is a mess. Lou Reed's abstract and often nonsensical verses do little to engage or provoke thought, coming off as self-indulgent and disconnected from any coherent narrative or theme. For fans of either artist, Lulu stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when creative ambition outstrips artistic sensibility, resulting in a piece of shit album that is the #1 album I hate from a band that I love. And Lou Reed. I feel like I need a palate cleanser. I need to listen to some good music by those bands. I'll crank out some Master of Puppets. We'll listen to Cherry Pie. We'll listen to Uncle Tom's Cabin. Little Dr. Feelgood. We'll get all this junk out of our ears. That was horrible. But thank you guys for watching this complete season of Gary Talks. You know, it's been a bit of a learning process. There have been videos I made I liked, some that I didn't like, some that I was kind of figuring out my voice, what I wanted to talk about. Some of these you guys really loved. They blew up, you know, on 15, 20,000 views. Some of them got like 17. It happens, you know. It's hard to know what people like, and really I'm just trying to focus on things I like to talk about, and hopefully you guys like it. But we are closing the book here on the first season of Gary Talks. As some of you know, because I've made a few announcements, Gary Talks is going to television in the St. Louis market. We're trying to expand it to a few other markets. We're trying to kind of get it syndicated. So it's going to be a show kind of like this, where I still talk about things, I rank things, but it's also going to have interviews. It's going to be focused around the interviews. I have a new theme song, some new graphics, new people working on the show with me. So it's going to be completely new. And then what I'm going to do is those episodes that air in St. Louis, air in other places, I will tweak them. I'll make them a little more, you know, internet friendly, so I can say fuck and shit and goddamn, which I can't say on the TV versions. They won't be as formatted to fit into that 30-minute window, and I can be a little freer with them. So season 2 of Gary Talks is going to be kind of that, you know, the extended version of the TV show. Next week will be the very first episode of season 2. You'll get to hear the new theme song. It's really awesome. I'm going to have the great Steve Martin on the show as I talk to him about the best of 2024 so far. I'm going to do a mid-year in review talking about my favorite and least favorite movies, music, and TV shows, and we'll have Steve Martin on to talk about one of my favorite documentaries of the year that he did. So hope you guys watch it. Hope you love it. If you're in the St. Louis area, be sure and check it out. KMOV Channel 4 at 2 in the morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. And then everybody else, it'll be right back here on the internet. See you then.
Gary Talks Music. Gary Talks Music. Gary Talks Music.